Hello and welcome to another live instalment of the Empire of the Kop Podcast. With us here today, we have the fifth Beatle, Mick Moran of the Kopite, and our very own Peter Kenny Jones, and I'll be your host, Farrell Keeling. Mick, it's a pleasure as always to have you on board. How are you doing?
Yeah, all good. I think it's the perfect pod to jump back on after a certain someone's just bagged a load of goals. So yeah, can't wait to have a little chat about it.
That certain someone wouldn't be a certain Uruguayan £64 million signing, horrifically bullied online on Twitter. Everyone's saying he's rubbish, a flop, because he's missed a few efforts in training. He's had about an hour of pre-season football before the game against RB Leipzig. I mean, we have to just kick off with Darwin Nunez. It'd be absolutely insane to cover anyone else after that, showing 4 goals, Pete. I mean, what do you make of that? I think we have to sort of preface this with it is pre-season, but we've been told so many times, he's rubbish and all this because of the performances that we've seen so far, the training clips. And then when it actually comes to it, we kind of have to acknowledge, well, perhaps he's not quite as rubbish as rival fans have made out on Twitter.
Is that for you,
Well,
Peter?
as you said, it's all pre-season. It's all stupid, isn't it? Oh, sorry. What a minute. Look at this. We're tripping over ourselves with the Nunez. Go on, you go first, Mick. My connection's terrible here.
I tell you what, Pete was so stunned by the 4 goals he's taken. Was that a 10-second delay?
Was that question for me, Farrell? Sorry, I thought Pete had a lag.
Lads. I think we're all a bit sort of up in the air of that. But I'll tell you what, Mick, we'll lead with you on that. We'll get you, get your words in on Darwin. We'll have plenty to talk about, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think. What did he play before that? Before this 2 games, he played 60 minutes, 65 minutes. So it's just hilarious that there was that, like you said, fail compilations on Twitter and like just everyone just trying to take the mick out of him. It's just hilarious. And then he comes on for second half in this game and scores 4, and actually 4 decent goals. The penalty was a bit shaky, but it went in. So it's one of them, like he could have had more as well. He had a good header, which was saved by the keeper. And yeah, it's just sharpness, I think, for him, because he's obviously, like, he doesn't speak the language, so he's having everything translated by Thiago via Jurgen Klopp, and he's got to get used to a new style and a new way of life and a fresh team. So it's, yeah, freshness is what he needed, and obviously his third game he looked a lot fresher, and like scoring 4 goals is just the icing on the cake.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think it's going to be a tremendous confidence booster for him, because I mean, it's such a shame. I think we've written about this on the Empire of the Kop, but looking at his treatment online, and obviously you kind of think players know what the score is online. There's a lot of idiots, sort of a lot of really nice fans, but you kind of get your fair share of both. But you saw him acknowledge the comments that have been made online, and you almost think, what will that do for you sort of early on? Is that going to affect your mentality a little, if even only a little? But I think it's fair to say, Pete, I mean, he's absolutely answered his critics with that. As Mick said, a bit of a shaky sort of first penalty, but what it paved the way for, even if only in pre-season, was pretty phenomenal. I think we've lost Peter. Pete's stunned again. He's not going to get over those 4 goals
that's 2 questions in a row.
That's 2. Should we have a chat? You and I.
Do you want me to answer that one for you?
Yeah, go on. You can ask. And we've lost. I can confirm we have lost Pete. I will have to drag him back onto the chat. All right, mate. Well, I'll tell you what. You and I will have a bit of a chat about Darwin. I mean, where do you stand on the whole point of pre-season? I'm very much of the mindset of, I absolutely accept this is pre-season. We have to fundamentally understand that pre-season for Klopp and the players is very much about building fitness. No one gets injured. Implementing. We've got Pete back. Implementing tactical instructions. It is purely instructive for the most part. As much as it is a pleasure to see, a game like that.
Yeah, and I think you've seen from obviously the first game at Man United, they took it quite seriously, putting out basically their full strength team. We put out a few young fullbacks. One was both 16 or 17, and Maguire and Chambers. Obviously, they got 30 minutes. Then we changed again, another 30 minutes and another 30 minutes. 3 different teams in that game. The Palace game, we stepped it up a little bit more with a bit more of a first team from the off. And then obviously, it's just a progression thing, isn't it? Once you start getting the fitness in the legs, and you start making the team, and you start shaping it in a way that you want it to be come 6th of August against Fulham. So I think that's what we want to see. And I think today that was, apart from Alisson in for Adrian, I think that's what we probably go for. First game of the season, maybe Bobby starts, but I don't know, because obviously then Darwin Nunez comes on and scores 4. So it depends what he does in between, obviously, the game today and then the game against Fulham. And I think it's 16 days away. So he's got a bit of time there. Obviously, we've got a good game coming up against Man City as well, which will be a good test for him. So it depends how good he does in those games, and if he scores even more goals, then he's probably gonna start that game, and we go with the team pretty much that started the game, apart from Alisson and Nunez in for Bobby and Adrian, I think.
I'm definitely going to move on to the general shape of the team, but I think I'm going to give Pete finally a chance to share his thoughts on Darwin Nunez and 4 goals for the Uruguayan hitman. I mean, Pete, where do you sort of stand on the point of pre-season and the extent to which you sort of take a performance relatively seriously? I think we're all of a similar mindset of, this is fantastic, but it's still very much pre-season. But given sort of the abuse is taken online, and I think that's a pretty perfect response.
Oh yeah, of course. As you say, those highlight reels weren't shared by Liverpool fans, where they were shared by non-Liverpool fans who think they are, and mainly everyone else from around the country who's, there's an agenda about Liverpool, though. It's net spend, FC and all that, and we like to say how much money we haven't spent in it. No, it is a fact. Just because you spend a lot of money on a player doesn't mean that we haven't recouped a lot of money this summer elsewhere. I think we've got rid of about 20 players this summer and brought in about 3 or 4. So, he's always going to have, he's going to be under the magnifying glass. Everyone's going to criticise him, and he's played like hardly any football, just over an hour, and everyone's written him off. And it obviously affected him, which did worry me a bit, when he comes out with the Instagram and the Twitter post telling everyone to be quiet, basically, and he's resilient. It worries you a little bit, is it getting to him too much? But, tonight, it wasn't like he was doing somersaults when he scored his 4th. That he was looking like, this is me. And he felt more comfortable, as you would, putting the ball in the back of the net. So it was great to see. I think for strikers, it's just all about getting the ball in the back of the net. I don't think their keeper paints himself in much glory for probably the 1st and the 4th goals. But, if you score, you score. You can say I've scored 4 goals in 3 games. He's probably played just over 90 minutes now, has he, or just under. And, I'm just really happy for him. And, you can see there was a clip when it went to Klopp, and it looks like he was just staring at him and smiling. And it must have just meant so much to the whole squad, because they keep getting asked about him every interview. Although it's all pre-season stuff, they're all asked about Darwin Nunez, and they'll all be happily answering questions now, saying, he scored 4 goals, you can leave him alone now. And it was great to just, really happy for him. And off we go. Let's go and beat Salzburg, hopefully another 4, and maybe you can show up City in the Community Shield. And what a way to start your Liverpool career.
No, absolutely. And very interesting when there's been discussions around who will score the most out of the 2 sort of new major signings up front, in terms of Erling Haaland, who obviously joined Manchester City, and our very own Darwin Nunez. Very interesting to see where this will sort of pan out in the long run. But ultimately, regardless of the importance one places on pre-season, you can't deny that's going to be a pretty significant confidence booster for Darwin Nunez going forward. Looking at the shape of the team as a whole, I mean, like you both sort of mentioned, it's pretty much Liverpool's strongest 11, barring, of course, the obvious exception of Alisson Becker. I mean, where do you see sort of the future of this sort of Liverpool setup? Pretty much looking at sort of the back line as well, because I think Konate coming in alongside Van Dijk is pretty significant. It's not been entirely overlooked, but you're looking at sort of Joel Matip being arguably one of, if not our top performer last season. That's a bold claim, of course, given the first half of the season Mo Salah had, and of course the second half season form of Luis Diaz and Sadio Mane. But that's a pretty huge show of faith in the Frenchman.
Yeah, I think so. I think, like you said, the fact that the team that Klopp did pick from the beginning, I think, like you said, it is quite telling. Like, I think Konate, the games that he did play the back end of the season, I think it was a kind of, we're giving Joel Matip time to rest because he was playing maybe 2 or 3 in a row and then coming out the team, and then we're giving Konate a game. And I think Konate was just then taking those chances with both hands and then forced his way into the reckoning as a first choice, really. And I think that's why we didn't see Gomez at centre back at all. We saw him at full back, and obviously Gomez has signed a new deal, so he's going to be wanting to play full back as well as centre back going forward. So it's nice to have these options, but I think Konate is, at the moment, obviously in Klopp's mind, I think he's first choice. I think it depends on who you play as well. I think if you play against, obviously, the more speedy, you want Konate, you want Gomez, and obviously Matip's not slow, but you can be found out if you've got someone really rapid. I think Darwin Nunez proved that in the game when he played for Benfica last season, where he just skips past them, and I think that's the only one flaw you could say for Joel Matip, that he hasn't got that pace, but then he's got the experience over Konate. So it's nice to have options. And I think it's one of them, like, we've got to look forward to the season. Obviously, a great win tonight. Obviously, it's still pre-season. We don't want to get too hyped up, but load of good performances second half as well, like Curtis Jones. Like, there's loads of options, like Carvalho second half as well was looking really, really neat and tidy, tracking back in the left back position sometimes, like covering for Simicast and just stuff like that. It's going to take time for these lads to gel in, and I think the more settled we are, especially at the back, if Alisson comes back in, I think he'll be fit for City, hopefully. Then you've got obviously Trent, Konate, Van Dijk and Robbo as a set 5 with Alisson, so that's pretty much set in stone, I think, going forward, and then you can work in the new lads around that. But I think the more solid your base, then it's easier for these lads to come in, the likes of Carvalho, the likes of Nunez, and I think even Bajcetic, I don't know if I'm butchering his name there, but I think even he as a 17-year-old looked quite composed and good on the ball tonight, so it's interesting that he got put in as well. So he's just another option that we probably weren't even factoring in. Like 6 weeks ago, he's one that's maybe shone a little bit in training, and Klopp's put him in second half today, and he looked really good. So promising signs going forward, and we just need to not expect too much, like I said, with Carvalho, and obviously Nunez he's probably gone from no expectations, rival fans, to expecting loads of goals because he scored 4 tonight. So it's just going to be one of them. It's going to be topsy-turvy, but it's good signs going forward, and we've got enough quality for any game going forward.
No, it's a good point on Bajcetic. I probably butchered that as well. I do apologise. But this is what pre-season is ultimately sort of made for. You do get the odd couple, maybe one or two, maybe just the one new face that sort of pops through. I think everyone sort of expected that might be Kylie Gordon, but obviously the injury came through and sort of prevented that to a certain degree, not to rule out the player entirely. Of course, for the remainder of pre-season and going into the season proper itself, there will be opportunities in the cup competitions. That is absolutely for certain. Strongest sort of midfield trio we've probably got available at this point in time in Thiago Alcantara, Fabinho and Naby Keita, of course. Look pretty solid, but I kind of want to talk about the forward line, Pete. Luis Diaz on the left, Roberto Firmino going down the middle, and of course Mo Salah on the right-hand side. Would that be the front three that you would potentially start in the Community Shield and the first league game of the season against Fulham? It's a tough position to put you in after you've seen Nunez slot in 4 goals. But I thought, to be honest with you, I thought Firmino was absolutely phenomenal. Klopp sort of came out the other day and said, he's back to his best. He's fully fit. He is a world-class player. Do not rule him out. And I think, ultimately that performance really backed up the manager's words there.
Yeah, well, we know what you're going to get when Bobby's through the middle, isn't he? He had something different, and he's probably had his fair share of critics from rival fans again, hasn't he? And they always question what he does, and is he better than X? Is he better than Y? And he isn't, because he's a totally different player. He's the best at what he does, and he's getting written off as if he's like 35. He's the same age as Mo Salah, and we're all happy to see him another 5 years. Of course, it's a different type of player, and he might not last as long. But I'd definitely start Bobby for the Charity Shield, the Community Shield, sorry. But I think Darwin Nunez for Fulham, so I'm not... you give me 2 games, so I can have 2 different options for it. But yeah, I think with Nunez, there's no point putting the pressure on him again. I think, just like he did with Luis Diaz, Klopp, he didn't play him against Burnley away, didn't he? I think playing Man City in the Community Shield, you can almost, obviously, you're setting him up to go and be a hero, but at the same time, if he does anything wrong, everyone's watching. I think Fulham away, first game of the season, Darwin Nunez go and run riot. What better excuse do you want to go and get your name sung, go and announce yourself to the Premier League? And I think also with we've got that friendly the day after, haven't we? It'll be good for Nunez to go and play in that game instead, which obviously the day after there's not going to be many, if any, who play both of those games, Community Shield and I think it's Rosenborg, isn't it, in the at Anfield. So yeah, I think give Nunez the Anfield game, give him the first Prem one, and Bobby knows exactly what he's doing. Klopp would have put a lot of importance towards the end of last season and, in the middle of it to win the League Cup and the FA Cup because they hadn't done it before. And although the Charity Shield is, and people call it a glorified friendly, whatever, we haven't won that. And, why not get that, under everyone's belt? It's another medal. They've had a few goes at it. We've lost a few times to City, Arsenal. Let's go and win that one, get ourselves on the right foot. And yeah, I think it'll be a really positive outing for all of them. And it's all about this trip now to Austria. It's all about getting them fine-tuned for those 2 games. It's, the Community Shield and Fulham. And yeah, I think the options we've got are ridiculous, really. Jota's injured and we're not even talking about him because we've got such a great front line. And yeah, what a difference a big win makes because we're all out dead happy, dead excited. Everyone can score 4 goals a game. But yeah, it's all looking good. And yeah, can't wait for the season to start now.
It's an interesting one on Diogo Jota, and I think I'm glad you mentioned because you look at down sort of centre, you think Jota's you're talking about a 20+ goal scorer, and he had injuries as well, which is bonkers. But eliminate him from the equation, and you've still got Darwin Nunez, and of course Bobby Firmino, which is far from disastrous. It's problematic, I think you'd say, but certainly not disastrous by any stretch of the means. Again, Carvalho can also play down on the left flank, alternatively to Luis Diaz, so can Nunez. Mo Salah, I mean, you say the real sort of problem area, if it is a problem area, is depth on the right wing sort of role. I think Kylie Gordon can play there, but would you trust him to opt in for Mo Salah? Probably not. At this current sort of point in time, Harvey Elliott, of course, can also file out there. So there is still pretty significant depth, even with that sort of one missing. Mick, I mean, how would you sort of approach this? I think I'm probably of a like mind with Peter. I wouldn't quite throw Nunez out into the deep end as early as sort of the Community Shield, although it's Klopp, he could do absolutely anything. We've been surprised before. But then if he does sort of feature him out against Fulham, would it be a formation change? Will we see that return to the 4-2-3-1 he favoured at Dortmund? Because there's been a lot of talk about Liverpool sort of bringing back that sort of traditional sort of number 10, sitting behind sort of a lone striker. We'd imagined the wingers will be out there sort of supporting him in that bank of 3. But do you reckon it'll be experimentation as early as Fulham, or would it be sort of something that's sort of gradually fed into throughout the season?
I think I'll agree with Pete. I think you go Firmino for City because it's City and Bobby is tried and tested, and we know what City are going to do, and we can counteract that because Bobby played against them loads, so we can kind of nullify them a little bit better with Bobby. And then, like I said as well before, it depends how well Darwin Nunez does in between now and then. Obviously, he's got 16 days, a couple more games. We've got next game, and then we've got a game at Anfield, Strasbourg, obviously Community Shield. So there's quite a good chunk of games there where if he keeps scoring and he keeps impressing, then he might start against City. But I wouldn't personally. And I mean, like you said there, Fire, Klopp is prone to surprising us, but for a City game, I don't think he does surprise us. But yeah, it's nice to have these options. Like you said, we haven't even got Jota. I don't think he's going to be fit for he's not going to be fit for the Community Shield, so I don't imagine he'll be fit for the Fulham game the week later. So once he comes back in, there's another option there. So loads of options. It's nice, and I think going forward, obviously, Harvey Elliott can slot into the right of a 3. You've got Carvalho, like I said before, played really well in the left of a 3, coming on as a sub in the game today. So it's just one of them. Like, we've got good options, but I think the likes of Carvalho, the likes of Elliott, the likes of Curtis Jones maybe need to. Obviously, it's great that they're so versatile because they can go on a myriad of positions, but maybe need to nail down a little bit more what the first position is, and then kind of their position is X, but they can also play in this one, and this one. Whereas at the moment, we kind of like which one is their best, which one is where are we going to get the best from them, and then we can also move them there if we need to. I think that's something that this season and next season, obviously Carvalho's only been here 2 minutes, so he's got time, but Harvey Elliott and Jones, I think this season is quite key for them in terms of where they're going to play. Is it going to be right and left of a midfield three, or is it going to be Elliott as a backup to Salah as when we need to play, like you said, League Cup games and FA Cup games and whatever else? So it's nice problems to have, because years gone by, like Liverpool teams have just had a good first 11 and then maybe a good sub or a good couple of subs, and now we're talking about it like we've got loads of options and we've got so much strength and depth, which you're trying to. There's so many variables and so many variations of play, like you said, different styles: 4-2-3-1, 4-4-3, 4-2-4, which Klopp's done before. So there's so many options, and I think having Nunez is another string to our bow, because there's games last year maybe where we struggle a little bit more, and if we had Nunez to bring on, you just play a ball over the top, or you can play a ball into the box, and he's got that aerial ability which he showed tonight with a good header, which he could have scored from. So it's just having those extra options. Like we're such a good team in terms of setting up and reacting to how they're playing and kind of figuring them out and like grinding them down and beating them eventually. But having Nunez in the mix and like having Carvalho, I think this adds an extra 2 weapons, and I think that makes us even more dangerous, especially against the low block teams coming forward in the new season.
I think it's fair to say we're all rather pleased with Darwin Nunez at the moment. Still very much early days, of course. £64 million. Will it be well spent? History says that Liverpool don't tend to spend that much amount of money, at least under the Jurgen Klopp era, without a certain degree of certainty that the signing will work out. And before we wrap up this Darwin Nunez loving, I kind of want to bring the discussion back to Mo Salah. The man signed a new contract. Great news for all involved ahead of the start of the season proper. Was a bit sort of overshadowed by that 4-goal salvo from our Uruguayan international. But he opened the scoring. And I mean, to be honest, Pete, he kind of looked probably our best player in that first half. It looked absolutely electric, engaged, just the kind of Mo Salah we saw in the first half of the season. He's had that break in the summer, which is absolutely incredibly valuable, given 63 games Liverpool played across the entire all the competitions last year, and that's not accounting for his commitments with Egypt, with the World Cup qualifiers, the African Cup of Nations. I mean, what were your thoughts sort of seeing him out there?
Yeah, you know what you get from Mo Salah, don't you? I think he said in commentary, it was Gary Gillespie saying, if the season started tomorrow, he'd be fine to play. He never looks like someone who looks a bit out of form. Obviously, we know what happened to him the last season, but he always looks like he wants to play every game. Is probably what I'd rather say. It's a bit like Luis Suarez-esque. He just never seems to be injured, never seems to be shy away from getting on the ball, trying to beat people, trying to score. Sometimes it's to his detriment. Sometimes he could release it earlier. But I think this pre-season, there's been a lot of highlights about Nunez, who's hopefully now shut them all up. But I think Salah's just been consistent on what you'd expect. And as you say, just a few weeks off for him are massive, but he loves football so much or loves scoring and being involved so much that he never wants to miss a game. But if you take football off him and let him rest, it just shows a difference it makes. And, Egypt's loss is our gain in the Winter World Cup, and we're going to have him even fresher for the second half of the season. You expect a lot of the big teams, a lot of their players are going to be selected for the World Cup. We've got the likes of Diaz, Robertson, Salah, a few others. Thiago might not get selected. Henderson might not play. These people are going to be very fresh for us for the second half of the season. It's going to be massive. It's just about getting this rest in now, getting them ready, attack the first half, and if we can have 5-6 players who are more than ready for the second half of the season and can hopefully pick up those points while everyone else is faltering a bit and coming off holiday mode, that could be massive for us. And you wouldn't be surprised to see Salah top goal scorers again. You wouldn't be surprised to see us first, second in the league, challenging in Europe, and he's going to be massive. So it's just pretty much rinse and repeat with Mo Salah in it. That's why we've given him all the money we've given him. That's why we've given him the years that we trust that he's going to stay at that talent. And yeah, it's exciting. It's exactly what you want to see from the Egyptian king. And let's hope it's another 40, 50 goal season. We know he's got in him, and he hasn't got any doubters probably, but he can shut them up as well.
Oh, absolutely incredible season. Incredible numbers as well, given you think there was a significant sort of drop-off, and that's obviously in comparison to the first half of the season performance we saw last year. I think I'm just looking at the numbers now. 31 goals, 16 assists in 51 appearances across all competitions for Liverpool last season. Absolutely phenomenal. Mick, to sign us off, I mean, what are you sort of predicting from Mo Salah this season based off of his recent, particularly that sort of first half performance? There's a lot to ask because, again, it is pre-season. We take it all with a pinch of salt. But we've obviously known to a certain extent what we're getting from Mo Salah based on what we've seen since he joined from Roma.
Yeah, like more of the same what he's been doing, like just absolutely scoring for fun. And I think he only needs, is it 11 goals to be our highest ever Premier League goal scorer, which that in itself is just obviously since 92, but no one's overtaken Ian Rush, but like to be the highest Premier League goal scorer in 5 years is just nothing short of unbelievable, to be fair. So I imagine he's going to smash that to bits, hopefully quite early on in the season. And then, yeah, I think he's like, we know what we're going to get. Like you said, you could have the season tomorrow and he'd score. You just know he's in that peak physical condition and he knows where the goal is and he gets you the goal like for fun. So it's going to be interesting to see, like, because obviously Mane left and there was that bit of like, I don't know, it was like fake, like they weren't getting on and whatever, because obviously Salah, like Pete mentioned, like Salah doesn't pass sometimes when he's in good areas and didn't give the ball. But I think this year you might see a more focused Mo Salah, especially from January onwards in the previous season where he wasn't at his best. And I think if he would have carried on the form that he had from the start of the season to January, he would have won everything. He would have won every award available because he was just in that the form that he was in was absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, hopefully he does that over the course of the whole season now that he's got that contract signed and he can be a bit more focused. And I think we've seen tonight that was the return of the Salah we've seen in the early part of last season where he was just strong and getting on the ball and making stuff happen, and he just occupies 2 or 3 players by just being on the pitch, and that opens up space for Darwin Nunez or Firmino, Diaz and other players like that. So can't wait to see how they try and stop him. It's going to be interesting.
No, absolutely. I think you're spot on. I think there's a pretty good chance he'll at least get past Fowler's record this coming season. Overall, in all competitions, of course, he's about 190 goals behind Ian Rush. That's quite the tally to get past in the next 3 seasons. But you never know. Salah has the kind of sort of season that sort of first half of the season all the way through, no distractions, and you think with a contract sorted, this could have been a season that would have been for a good chunk of it defined by the question of, is Mo Salah going to say, where is he going to go, which would be a devastating distraction for Jurgen Klopp's men. But it's been sorted before the season started. It's not a problem. We've got a couple of injuries to sort of be not quite worried about, but to consider. But at large, Liverpool seem again to be heading very much in the right direction ahead of the upcoming campaign. Darwin Nunez hits 4. Mo Salah got the opener. It's a pretty strong showing against RB Leipzig, but it is only pre-season. We take it with a pinch of salt and we move forward to the next one against Salzburg before the Community Shield clash with Manchester City. This has been the Empire of the Kop podcast. We've had with us here today Mick Ryan of the Kop. Do you want to just give us a quick update on everything that's going on your end, Mick? Any interesting interviews you'd like to share? Anything coming up in the pipeline?
I'm still working on a few. I haven't got nothing set in stone, so I won't mention any names. But I've got a few. Hopefully, some ex players. But as Pete knows, they're hard to get hold of, and if you do get hold of them, they're just really slippery, like an eel, and they just ignore you for weeks, and then they'll reply. So I sound a bit bitter there, don't I? No, but yeah. It's so Jay's doing one for our on the Kop podcast. If you just search YouTube Kop podcast, and then Jay's doing one about Sammy Ipia's like origin story, which is like the story of his career. He's done Fowler, he's done Berger so far, and both people have like personally reached out to him and said that they enjoyed it. So hopefully Sammy will do the same. But yeah, I'm just trying to get some famous Reds on. Russell Howard or someone like that will be nice. But I'm working on it. Hopefully soon.
Go get it, Mick. We'd absolutely love to see it. And everyone watching this can, of course, yeah. What's this, Pete?
I'm just saying I'm free, Mick, if you need me.
You're free.
Yeah,
scoring himself.
Oh, that was boss. That well done, by the way. Everyone should watch that. That was really interesting. That one, yes. So give that a watch if you haven't seen it. That was good.
Please do. It was on the Kop podcast, and you can watch Mick and many of his amazing, famous guests, and hopefully Russell Howard soon. Russell, if you are listening, we'd absolutely love to see that happen. Make it happen, Russell. And of course, we've had Mick Moran. Thank you very much for coming on to the Empire of the Kop podcast. We've had our very own Peter Kenny Jones, and I've been your host, Farrell Keeling. This has been the latest instalment of the Empire of the Kop podcast. We hope you've enjoyed it. Take care.